All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live episode. This is the last episode of our three-part series for this perspectives on future-proofing learning at your organization. My name is Mary Monastersky. I'm a consultant here at Thoughtium and your host for today's conversation. If you've tuned in to the other two episodes of this series, thank you for rejoining us. If you're joining us for the first time, we've been exploring current and future learning trends and how they're impacting how organizations design and deliver great learning experiences. So as part of this perspectives, there's three things you can explore. First is 3 live conversations, the last of which you're watching right now. A second is an in-depth article on the topic. And third is a toolkit that you can use in your work and with your teams. And all of those things are available at thoughtium.com/perspectives. So thanks for tuning in. I'm really excited to welcome our guest for today. She's truly a fantastic leader and so excited to have this conversation with her, Stephanie Lyras. She's a first-time guest and Thoughtium's first international guest on our live stream. Stephanie is currently the director of change management, engagement, and adoption at Degreed, which is a leading learning experience platform. She engages with clients to drive a people-led approach to learning transformation at their organizations. So very relevant to our topic on future-proofing. She has an extensive background in management consulting and industry roles, helping organizations to enable their business technology and culture change. And lastly, I had the honor of working with Steph during my time at Degreed, and I can say that she's truly a change expert, change leader, a passionate advocate for learning, as well as a passionate learner herself, and also just a really great person. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with her today. Hi, Steph.
Hey, Mary, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Well, hold on. I have to stop because we have a Thoughtium tradition at the beginning of every show. One word for how you're coming in today.
Ooh, how am I coming in today? I am coming in, I would say energized. Yeah, I would say I'm coming in energized in lots of different ways, though. Chaos and also kind of inspired by some of the things I'm working on at the moment.
Oh, yay. That's a good amount. What is that like 4-part matrix where they're like good chaotic versus negative? You're in the good chaotic box, I feel like.
Yeah, I've got a
With me.
combination at the moment. And Mary, I have to ask you because, of course, everything dropped out right before I came online. Is my sound connection, everything okay?
I think so. Yep, we're good.
Perfect.
Okay. I
Good.
got the nod from our very esteemed tech person that you're good. So thanks for checking. Well,
Of
thank you
course.
so much for joining. So excited to have this chat with you. Why don't we just start by having you introduce yourself to our viewers, a little bit about your background and your involvement in learning transformation.
Perfect, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Steph Lyras. I'm based out of London. I work at Degreed as our director for change management, engagement and adoption. So it's a bit of a mouthful. And in terms of how I got here, I grew up in management consulting. So I started my career there with KPMG Australia, really focused on people and change management, was there for several years. And then after that moved into one of my client organizations where I had the humbling task of implementing a strategy that I delivered as a consultant in-house. And that just gave me so much perspective in terms of, I guess, the things that we come up with as consultants sometimes that are very blue sky and sometimes not really grounded in the realities of what some of our organizations are facing. So that was a really nice experience to kind of implement a change and actually be there to see it get sticky and to try to make it sticky for the long term. And that really felt like a privilege that you don't often get in a consulting capacity. So I started there. I was leading an international portfolio of change management, and it was all kind of change. We were really generalists, sorry. So we were looking at things like organizational restructuring, systems and technology implementations, culture change, any kind of change really. And it was just a fascinating space to be in. After that, I moved into our customer experience function where I was working on really transitioning our business from being very process engineering led to a customer led organization. then moved over to London. I found Degreed. I started working on our global strategic implementation. So, supporting clients, say from the financial services sectors. Some of those clients had 300,000 employees, our pharmaceutical clients, high end fashion clients. So, a really nice, diverse portfolio of global strategic implementations. And for those not familiar with Degreed, I won't harp on about it too much, but it's essentially a platform. It's a learning experience platform. I like to think of it as a Netflix for growing skills. So we provide that to organizations to really help their people to grow the skills they need to be successful with the organization. And so, yeah, then just to round off about me. So, about a year and a half ago, we stood up our professional services practice. So, I got to go back to my roots in consulting, and really am focused right now in helping our clients to drive adoption and think about what's the people side of this technology and this learning implementation.
Well, great. Yeah, so I have to dig in with one question. Just as two consultants on the phone, you mentioned you learned so much from switching to being in that strategic role, making recommendations, to moving in-house to actually needing to implement and execute on your own recommendations. Just any thought on like what you experience? I heard you mention that it was difficult to drive that change, but any other thoughts on what's it like to really have to try to drive change versus just recommend change?
Yeah, that's a really nice point. And I think the mic might have cut out a little bit, but I think I've got
Ah,
the key question, which is around, yeah, driving change versus recommending it. I think it's about embedding is the thing we always forget about. So when I think about change, I think about it as firstly engaging people around what the change is, then enabling them so they have the tools, the knowledge, the resources they need to be successful, and we've removed some of those barriers, and then embedding the change. And that's the piece I think we really often shy away from. And I think when we look there, we have to really think about what does the whole system look like. So if we think about that from a people process technology perspective, so how do we make change really seamless for people and integrate it into everything? So if I think about learning, for example, if you're bringing in a new learning initiative, then we might want to think about, okay, well, what are some other processes that are very aligned within the organization, things like annual goal setting and onboarding and leadership development programs that we could start to integrate in there and help leaders understand how to role model good learning behaviors and learning culture. So those are just some process examples. If I think about technology examples, meeting people where they are people spending time in Microsoft Teams or Slack? What are their other HR systems that they're using? And how do we make that really seamless for them so it's easy? And then from a people perspective, thinking about all the kind of everyday conversations that people have with their teams and how we can incorporate learning and driving learning culture through those day-to-day conversations. So I think in terms of driving change and really embedding it, it's thinking about the whole picture, all of the systems, the processes, the tools, the people, the human interactions that we can really integrate in to make it something that becomes very embedded.
yeah. Yeah, really good points. And I like my connection to that is my experience in the learning ecosystem, working with L&D, being occasion in that seat myself. We often hear of like we're seeing this shift from changing from learning as a one-time event to learning as integrated into what we do and how we do it. I think a lot of the points that you brought up are like really great ways to think about how do you really embed learning so it doesn't come across as just, hey, I'm going to another training, or hey, I have to watch another video, but it's really part of your overall process. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So we haven't even gotten to my first official question of the call. This has already been really insightful so far, though. Very exciting. So maybe we'll pivot to kind of the overall theme of this, which is about future proofing learning. So really in your role, you have what I've seen is like a front row seat to organizations who are really tackling future proofing their learning in real time, thinking about how can I make it so my folks at my organization are really set up to learn in the long term. So with that like perspective that you have, what are one or two maybe challenges or opportunities you're seeing that organizations are trying to address with learning or future proofing learning? What are they trying to solve for when it comes to learning?
Yeah, so I think we saw some good early examples of that with what happened with COVID, right? And I would never say that I was glad that COVID happened, but I think some of the things that came out of it have been quite interesting in terms of we had this big global challenge that every single organization was facing, and constant change just continued to flow on from then. So I think in terms of the opportunities that are there right now, for me, it would be around learning, supporting the business with change as a constant, and really being there at the forefront and thinking about as these global challenges come through, or global opportunities come through, like what we saw with generative AI and the explosion around that. What are the skills that our people need to be successful, and how can we help to grow that within our organization? So I saw clients who kind of set key organization priorities and focus skills around generative AI, and that's just for me a really nice opportunity to think about learning at the forefront of building the skills that people need to meet the challenges that we're facing today, particularly as they continue to evolve.
So it's a couple things. It's like it's not just that change is nebulous and we can't get ready for it. The opportunity is we can prepare our people for it. Like we need to proactively figure out how we need to grow our whole workforce or big groups of them. Like what are the skills that our business need to drive? And I love that. That's like elevating learning from being focused on a particular group and just thinking of, okay, us as a business, these are things we need to drive for our people. So,
Yeah, exactly that.
yeah. So in terms of organizations who are, pulling through, tracking these global changes to their business and connecting it to skill building, do you have maybe like one example of like how you see people who are addressing this well, like for organizations who are doing it well, what are like maybe one or two things that they're thinking of or that they do that help them along in this process?
Yeah, great question. So, in terms of what I see organizations doing well, so we have some really high performing clients actually who inspire me every day, and the ones that do this really well are those who have a global strategy but with local implementation. So there's a really clear message that comes from the top, and I guess that's executive sponsorship, right? Of here are our priorities as a business. Here's what's important to us, but that trickles down in a meaningful way and then is executed at the local level by people leaders, line managers, by change or learning champions, by, say, local learning leaders as well, particularly for some of our global dispersed organizations. So, really thinking about what's that consistent global strategy that trickles down, but then it gets executed at the local level. Because if ultimately, if I have a senior leader, if I have a chief people officer who's saying that learning is important, for example, or generative AI is important, but in my role that I have as an individual, I don't feel that I have time to really even engage with that or look at it. And my manager certainly isn't creating the space for me to do that, then it's just not going to happen. And I really feel that initiatives rather would kind of live and die at that local level, but we need to have that consistent message that's coming from the top down. So that's one way that I see it working really well. I've seen some of my clients partner really closely, say, with local communications leads across a kind of a global organization to make sure that their initiative is always part of the ongoing conversation that takes place, and that goes out to employees, and kind of that engagement that happens in all of the channels that exist. So again, that would be another example of global strategy, but really local efforts to implement to make it real for people on the ground, really understanding what are the needs of our employees at that local level and how can we best meet them in sometimes different ways, but in a way that's still aligned to that overall strategy. The other thing I would say, and I touched on it right at the start, but I'll emphasize it and repeat it again, is that learning is seamless. So again, it has to be part of a really integrated experience. So when we're meeting the challenges of today, it has to be that there's kind of one consistent thread and message that I'm seeing in different parts of the organization, in different technology platforms that I use, in different conversations that I have with different people. So again, really thinking about that seamlessness, and that consistent thread that goes across everything.
Love that. Um, well, yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. We're still good? Yep. Okay, great. Sorry, the audio changed a little bit, but I think we're all set. So, want to dive into one particular theme that we've been talking a lot during this perspectives in terms of future proofing learning. which is around learner centricity. You know, I mentioned in your intro that you really drive a people focused approach to learning transformation. So I just want to hear from you from your own opinion, your own words, like what does this idea of learner centricity or people centricity really mean for you? Um, yeah, I'll just leave it there. What does it mean for you?
Yeah, for me, it really relates to what I was doing back in the customer experience space at my last company, which was putting the customer at the center of everything that every single team did and how product was developed and so on and so forth. And it's the same thing here, really, in this context. The customer is the employee or the learner, and really putting them at the center of everything. And there's probably two things that I'll touch on here. One of them is around how we design learning solutions. So one thing that I've always been surprised by when I start working with some of my clients is they've developed these like really amazing learning experiences that are based on the expertise they have in the learning space. But no one's gone and spoken to an employee to find out what are your needs, even how are you learning today? Like, is this going to be developed and delivered to you in a mode that is something that you're going to want to consume? And, you know, particularly as now people are going back into the office, we have more people who are listening to podcasts again, and we have to really think about the ways that we can engage that makes sense for the learner and, you know, is in a format that they like. So learner centricity first, I think, has to be at the center of everything that we design, and really bringing in learners, speaking to them. I always say kind of observing learners in the wild to really understand how they're learning, what they even consider as learning. One of our clients who we work with, and a particular person from that client, Amritha Murali, she and I have worked on a bit of thought leadership in this space. And one of the things she learned when she went out into the wild to observe learners is they really didn't have a learning program at this organization that was running. But when she spoke to people, they said, oh, we're doing so much learning all the time. You know, there's this constant barrage of learning, and it's getting really tiring. And she's thinking, but there is no learning happening or being released. And she realized that actually what they were referring to is their compliance training. And so in the minds of employees, the regular compliance training that they needed to do as an organization was being conflated with learning experiences, which should be very personal and self-driven. So she did an incredible amount of work to really separate the two and then drive learning experiences that were meaningful. And none of that would be possible without going out and speaking to the business and speaking to people within the organization. So that learner centricity at the start is really important. And then again, I think thinking about how we embed new learning habits and behaviors and learning culture and that stickiness of learning, that's where we can come back to, okay, what are the everyday obstacles that people are facing? The most common one that we typically hear about engaging with learning tends to be around, I don't have time to learn. And usually when I hear that from an employee, it usually means I don't feel I have the permission to learn, or it's not seen as important. It's not being communicated to me as important. And so I just don't have time for it. So again, like really understanding once learning has been released, what are the barriers to engaging with it? Who are the people who are struggling to get on board? And how can we help them with some of those obstacles, and think about, again, all the entire system, the levers that we can pull from a people, process, technology perspective to really help them with those obstacles there. Again, placing the learner in the center as we embed new learning habits and behaviors.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think about this point of like, I like that saying. I feel like we need that on a t-shirt or something, the observe your learners in the wild idea. And like how that's so different than maybe a few years ago, 10 years ago, the mentality around learning where we'll push good learning to you and assume you'll like it, versus we'll observe you and figure out what you need, how you learn, and bring it back. I think that's just such a good way for, if there's L&D folks listening in your role, to think about how can you bring back that skill and develop it for yourself. Like, how can you become a researcher of the people you're supporting and like observe and understand them at a deeper level, connect with them. I think that's a really fun point. Like, how can you get out in the wild of your work?
And to your point, there is often this mentality of build it and they will come. And I see it a lot in the technology space, that we think we build this really exciting piece of technology and everyone's just going to flock, to use it. But we know that that's not the case. And one of my favorite experts in this space is Ashley Sinclair from Mass Marketing, and she really specializes in marketing for learning. And she's really made the point quite well that the things we're competing with now in terms of attention are organizations that specialize in capturing your attention. So LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, that's who we're competing with at the moment. So we can't take this mentality of build it and they will come, because they won't. We have to be reinforcing messaging and making it really compelling and ensuring that the experience is a really great integrated one for the learner.
Yeah, great. Well, I think just a couple questions to wrap up, and then we'll get to the rapid fire, which is the fun part. Although this is fun for me, we're a bit of a nerdy bunch when it comes to this topic, I would say, the two of us. So I'm having a good time. But in terms of like wrapping up, just want to hear to close, when you think about the future of learning transformation, et cetera, like what gets you excited when you think about that future, a few years down the line or longer?
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing that makes me excited about the future of work generally. And I think it's the way that we're moving towards being more skills-based and having organizations really take people on the journey, invest in their people, and growing skills that they need for the future. That's what excites me on kind of at principle. I think there are risks with that approach too. I think we always need to take a human approach to this and not see people as just a collection of skills, but really to think about what skills do we need for the success of our organization? What skills do we have? And for the people that we have, where do they have aligned skills where we can help to grow them and help them grow with us as a business? So I'm liking the trend I'm seeing now of more internal investment in people, less external hiring. I think our people that we have today can grow so many skills that we need for the future. And that's what I'm really excited about. So a skills-led approach, but with the caveat of it needs to be human as well. And we need to really recognize people for everything that they bring into our organization.
Yeah, I love that. Like we focused on what are the capabilities, those skills that people can really bring to an organization, and using that to drive, but not losing sight of that learner centricity, right? Of understanding what are their goals and how can we drive that as well and find that symmetry. I have to now, but it's too consulting word, the synergies between the two. I can't. Is there a way we can scrub the word synergies from our brain? But I really wish. Well, thanks, Steph, for really amazing insights on, I think, a piece that's really helpful for this perspectives, which is how do we drive change at a broader level, broader scales when we think about our entire workforces or organizations. So there's lots of good tips and information you shared about how the kind of L&D folks or others on the line think about driving learning change. So thanks for all your insights. Now we'll move on to close to our rapid fire questions here, just to get to know you a little bit better, more fun things. So let's start with a classic, which is, what are you reading, watching, or listening to lately?
Ooh, okay. So I'll answer what I'm reading, which is I'm stuck on a book actually that I can't get through. And I know they say that you should just abandon it and move on. But I do love reading. I tend to read a mix of fiction books and nonfiction, and I'm reading multiple always at the same time. So a couple of fictional ones that I would love to recommend. The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune is just beautiful. And then on the nonfiction side, particularly for our L&D folks, Measurement Demystified by Peggy Parsky is brilliant and really goes into how to measure the success of learning. So I'm constantly picking that up and flipping through it and learning from that. There's usually a few nonfiction ones on the go. I can't read it end to end. Radical Candor is another one that I really love in terms of having honest conversations in the workplace that are kind and impactful.
That's great. Who says that you need to put books down if you don't finish them? I have the same book on my nightstand for 8 months. I don't mind it there. I pick it up.
Sometimes it's the investment, right? Because it's blocking me from reading other books. And actually, one more thing, Mary, I have to recommend, because maybe you had said listening to, but there's a podcast. Yeah. I'm not actually much of a podcast person, but this one really brings me in, and it's all about vulnerability. And I've now actually gone and forgotten what the name of it is, because it's the end of my day. I will find it very quickly. But it's called The Imperfects. That's what it's called. And it's 3 Aussie men who talk about vulnerability, and it's brilliant. They have really honest conversations, which are my favorite kind, around topics that maybe we kind of skirt around or avoid even thinking about because they can be too confronting sometimes. But it's very funny. One of them's a stand-up comedian, so it's lighthearted, it's interesting, and that would be my one recommendation for everyone.
Okay, to listen to. Well, in addition to the books, but okay, now I'm motivated to finish my book on my nightstand. But yeah, this is definitely, when I was introducing you, I'm like, I have to say Steph is just like a passionate learner, because like that's very obvious in your answer. Okay, next one. So think about something that you admire about yourself and finish this sentence. If the world were more like me, it would be more blank.
If the world were more like me, it would be more empathetic. And I know for some people, they might see that as like a soft, fluffy answer. I think what I've learned more and more in life, and particularly through work as well, is that the soft and fluffy things like soft skills, they're often the hardest to learn and develop and have the most impact. So I'm going to go with my soft, fluffy answer.
Oh my gosh. Did you read the article? Did you get that from the article for this perspective? Oh, one of the things that I wrote in the article is like the soft skills are the new hard skills.
Oh, I love that.
Okay. Shameless plug for the article. We're on the same thinking. That's great. Okay. So as folks who probably hear from your accent, you're not from the US, you're Australian, also live in London. I don't even know how many years at this point, but three? Okay, great. 4, I can't count. So what is your favorite Australian or British holiday tradition that you wish was adopted everywhere else?
Ooh, I think that's hard to define for Australia because we're such a young country and we kind of borrow something from everyone. But you know what? No, I'm going to talk about Australia because I'm going to talk about Christmas in Australia, which is very different to probably everywhere else in the world, which is like Santa's on the beach. He's still wearing his full suit, to be honest. And the tradition would be that we would have a barbecue and it's sunshine and it's the beach. And if everyone can make that work, I think for one Christmas in their lifetimes, it's a really special experience. And having said that, I do find my white Christmases, well, we don't really have white Christmas in London, but winter Christmases are quite special in their own way. But there's just something about Christmas on the beach that is very unique that I would recommend everyone trying sometime.
Okay, great. So we'll just make sure the rest of the world gets good beaches. No, but everyone should take a trip to Australia. That should be the goal from that. Okay. And last thing, what's one thing that you're looking forward to in your new year?
Something I'm looking forward to in my new year. Well, I'm going to be leaving London for the winter just to work remotely in sunshine in South America and fix my Spanish. So that's definitely something I'm really looking forward to. It's just a solo adventure where I'm just hoping to have some pretty incredible experiences and fix a second language. So that's definitely the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big adventure. So yeah, very cool. Well, thank you, Steph, so much for joining. It's been so fun to have this conversation with you. I'm so glad we got the time to connect and I could bring you onto the show. So with that, I'll just wrap up today's live stream. Thanks for everyone out there who's watching live or listening to this recording. And this is the last episode of this perspective series. So do make sure to go look at the other 2 recordings if you haven't already. Read the article I referenced, and very shortly the toolkit will be live as well at thoughtium.com/perspectives. And you can see all of Thoughtium's live stream episodes, recordings, that was a long sentence, at thoughtium.com/live. Next week, we will not have an episode because it is a holiday in the US. So make sure to tune back in Thursday, November 30th at 3 p.m. Central for our next episode. And you can get all the details on that again at thoughtium.com/live. So thank you for joining and enjoy the rest of your day.